my background is entertainment industry. So popped out the womb in the jazz hands and splits, and didn't think I wanted to do anything else for my life.
Because you were a dancer, weren't you?
Yeah, dancer, choreographer, and then moved to LA and got signed as an artist and published songwriter. But then after kind of 10 years of being in the entertainment industry, I set up an Instagram account as I was flying home back to the UK, needed a break, and I set up an Instagram account called Lemonade Dolls. And the Instagram account purely existed to make women feel good, but actually, in hindsight, probably existed because I needed to feel good. I didn't realise at the time.
Yeah.
But spending that long just all about your image and being around people telling you whether you're good enough or not every single day. Yeah, I just needed another outlet, I think. And it just grew to something really authentic and really powerful, actually. And it was at the beginning days of influencers, and I certainly wasn't an influencer, but it just grew something that was super unique and authentic, and it was eclectic because I got a scholarship to, similar to you, quite a simple upbringing, really loving upbringing, but very simple. So needed to get to a little bit, maybe quite fast paced though. Needed to get to drama school, but I needed a scholarship to go. But that meant that by the time I was like 15, 16, my friends were international, my friends were everywhere. It was, and I worked straight away in the entertainment industry, meaning that I had an eclectic group of friends, which I didn't realise was actually the start of the community that I built for Lemonade Dolls. And we built a brand off representation. And the representation that we're so passionate about and how it's driven the business actually probably started when I moved to London at such a young age, and that was my normal, was to be surrounded by people from different backgrounds.
And how do you go from taking an Instagram feed that you're posting on for your own journey to launching a very disruptive and incredibly well-known and fast-growing brand?
Yeah, I have actually no idea how to answer that, to be honest. And I ask myself that every day, how the hell am I here? And I'm not sure how it happened. No, I do know exactly. It was very intentional. Once I made the decision, there was no intention behind the Instagram account turning it into a brand. But the women in that community that we had built together, they wanted more, and so did I. And they wanted something that they could feel. I realised consumers wanted an emotional purchase, and it was that change. People were starting to get more conscious around sustainability, and they were getting more, I wanted to back a business that they understood. And then I looked even further into the fact that actually representation is it's few and far between. And most brands, like what you actually mentioned, that most brands will go to the manufacturers and say, what have you got? What's next? Which then means that actually there's most brands that we all love and we all wear. We're lucky enough to be able to shop from them. Lots of people can't shop from them because of size issues and size restrictions and things like that. But it's the same stuff being churned around.
White
and all
label.
White label, essentially white label. But you're talking, they all have designers though. So it's not like they're just they have designers that tweak it, but they're going to the manufacturers. We didn't do that. We went straight to, similar to you, straight to factory, and that's how we've been able to innovate like first to market products, even though we're a tiny business, which is mental.
What pulled you into underwear? What was it about underwear? Because it's something that really people feel very emotional about, don't they? And it can make them feel good or make them feel bad, even though nobody really ever knows what underwear anyone else is wearing.
Yeah. I think it really started when I realised that there was a lack of confidence in my female friends and the community, and what better way to make women feel confident than get them in their undies. And then I also saw that the massive gap and opportunity that there was in the lack of representation in size and cup sizes. And most businesses that we all shop at, we're all lucky to be sitting here, 3 of us that can pretty much shop anywhere, but there is a huge amount of people that can't. And that was an opportunity. It made me angry, which usually when I get angry, things happen. And it was a massive business opportunity too. And so it was just clear. And at the time, love Victoria's Secrets, they've paved the way on what was possible. But at the time, they were everything that we stood against in the community that we're building, and promoting that kind of female confidence. You can do it. You can do anything you want in your life. And that was dominating the market. And then there was the amazing M&S, again, we also love, but there was no one else. There was no mass market brand done better with more ethical practices and size representation and human representation and innovation. So it was actually a really easy gap for us to try and disrupt.
And you took all this on as a solo founder, which is something we talk. You think that's a mistake?
100% mistake.
Why is that a mistake?
Two founders. I know, she nodded when I said two founders.
Yeah, literally, I was like, because we just spoke about it before. Yeah. I wouldn't do that again. I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't know what I was doing when I started. And so if I was to do it again, if I was to build a second business, there isn't a shadow of there would be a co-founder. 100%. I started at the beginning. I've learned everything along the way. I've had to learn.
What do you think a co-founder would bring that you don't have?
Structure.
Yeah.
I think.
Or is it just the feeling of not being alone?
No, it's not even that. It's not that. I think I can handle that. I think I've been, from when I was little, I've always been different and wanted something that my parents were like, who is this child? I'm pretty independent, and I'm happy to be independent. I think that to be a solo founder, you have to be that 360 person, and I've had to learn that. And I don't have the skills and the attributes to cover the business 100%. I think the dream, a little bit like your story, absolutely bang on. It's like there's usually a visionary, a creative, the ambition, the idea, and then there's someone that brings that kind of finance, the ops, that kind of structure. And I think you need both. I've had to learn. If you hadn't guessed already, probably more the visionary and the creative side. But I've had to learn that. I've had to learn how to look at a P&L and go, that's incorrect. No, those metrics aren't right. Okay, what are the KPIs? That won't work for us. I've had to learn that. I made a lot of mistakes along the way.
Can I just tell you though, you don't need a co-founder to have structure. Because you can hire very strong people and you can give them...
I have that now. I have that now, but I do think, and I agree, like I do have that now. I've just hired a CFO, which is fantastic, and not 3 months ago, should have done it a year ago. But there's something about someone who I go to sleep thinking about lemonade dolls. I wake up thinking about lemonade dolls. I'm in the shower thinking about lemonade dolls. I am at dinner thinking about lemonade dolls, which I'm working on. I really need to separate. I understand that this is my own work that I need to do right now. I am all consumed. This is my life. And actually, you can't expect that from anyone that you're hiring.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true.
And it's actually having that somebody that one can add the value of the other skill set, but also give you a break, help, and actually knowing that you could have a day off at that point. When you know someone's got it and they're the ones going to showering, thinking about it, going to sleep, you could be like, I'm gonna sleep well tonight because there's someone there. Yeah. Whereas actually there isn't anyone. But anyway,
I 100% agree with you. I think when you have setbacks, and we do have silent battles continuously on a daily basis, I'm sure you can testify to this. When you have someone that is very vested in the business as a co-founder, then they just take away some of the pain and you share the experiences and you can talk honestly and truthfully, and you know that it's going to be someone that really cares about the business. Totally. But I think when it comes to structure, like a good CFO, I recently relinquished my CEO position to someone that is better than me as a CEO, and she has brought a lot of structure. So you can achieve a lot without having a co-founder, and I think...
which we are doing.
And it might be because you always think it's like the single person wants a boyfriend, the person with a husband wants to be single. So let's talk about your funding journey, because I also think building a consumer brand is a lot of pressure, and you've been through various funding rounds. How have you found it and what have you learned? And you also said to me before we came on air that you didn't really know what you were doing in those funding rounds, the first one.
No idea.
So tell us the story.
Started the business with no cash and no personal cash. First of all, needed to raise money for that purpose, but also we're a cash intensive business to launch a product business where you need,
particularly if you're manufacturing underwear.
Yeah, and there's minimums, and then it's not like you can launch with 4 SKUs, 5 SKUs, 10 SKUs, 20 SKUs. We're launching with a minimum of 400 SKUs because otherwise you don't, including all the size ranges and everything. So we're a cash intensive business. So we had to raise money at the start, and that was interesting because I successfully raised money. I've raised successfully 4 times now. It's been a challenge. It's wild. I talk about it constantly all the time. You're asking men to invest in a female product. You're asking guys to trust you with no business background, no fashion background. You're asking them to believe in you. And luckily, I now do have some female investors, which is fantastic. But actually, majority is men. So yeah, it's been tough. It's probably the biggest challenge we've had as a business, is to raise consecutively every single year. It would be inconsiderate not to mention the fact of funding. 2% of funding goes to women, 98 goes to men. Women-led businesses outperform men businesses by 63%.
What was it like going round then? Knowing those facts and then going round and essentially talking to guys? Because it's terrible that it comes down to gender in some way.
Yeah, I mean, it totally does. It totally does. And it's also, there is reasons for it. It's not just, I'm not sitting here going, oh, it's so awful. Unfortunately, people invest in what they understand. And we just actually, now I'm going off topic, but we need to raise women into the positions of power to make those decisions rather than sit there being all grumpy going, we have to encourage women to be fighting for those seats and fighting to invest as well, angel investment. But anyway, I had to learn how to speak their language. So now I'm quite confident in those rooms. I go in and I know the numbers better than anyone. I know every single element of my business down to a T. There isn't a question you could ask me that I probably wouldn't know, and I've had to learn that. I didn't know that at the beginning, and it's a shame I have to know that because my male counterparts probably wouldn't need to. So
you found you were under more scrutiny?
100%, of course, because especially someone like me, I'm a creative, I wear pink and walk in with some trainers on and they're like, oh yeah, here we go, she wants a few million quid. Stamp it out, I stamp out whether they underestimate me or whatever, and that just has to...
And in terms of speaking the language then that you had to learn, what's your advice to other women? Because this is a much talked about topic. Women who are trying to raise money, the blocks they encounter, why are they encountering those blocks? What is it? Is it something that is real or something that they're just experiencing? What is it? So what's your advice to other women?
My advice is 100%, know your business in and out. Know your business in and out. And numbers, know the metrics, know your KPI, your business KPIs, understand acronyms. Also, I'm sorry, but listen, I walk into a room and I'm literally like, within 4 sentences, I've spoken about LTV, I've spoken about ROAS, I've spoken about my P&L, I've spoken about, everything. LTV over 2 years, but the LTV here and the average order value is this, and within literally 4 sentences. So they all start to sit back and they start to relax. Because
I think that's a really valid point, and I can totally imagine how that would be the case, because I think
profit margin, gross margin, product margins just decrease to this.
So you feel you have to blurt all this out?
Yeah, but I do it in like a clever way, And then another piece of advice that I learned from a very successful male founder, because he was in the room with me at once and he was like, I can't believe that just happened. I have never experienced anything like that before. He said, ask them the question back. Really rubbish question.
Yeah.
They'll ask something like, yeah, but I don't think that's correct. Or, oh yeah. And then he just said, ask them. And so I often say, oh, really? That's interesting. How would you do it? Crickets. Crickets. There's usually crickets in the room.
I think it's so important that you ask questions because you don't want to belittle yourself just to be there selling yourself.
Yes,
they need to sell themselves to you as well.
Yeah.
And you need to value your business. And I think having this dialogue and discussion is super important. Yeah. I always ask more questions than they ask me, because to me, these are partners that not every business goes like this. It always is cyclical.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And they have to be with you if things are not going right. They have to be with you. When things are brilliant, everybody's there clapping and cheering you along the way. But when you have problems, would they be there for you, and do they understand your journey? So I think in the fundraising cycle, things have changed because, first of all, having an authentic founder, it's a huge plus.
Yeah.
So if you have a real story, I think my advice would be what you did. You're telling your story, you know your numbers, but it's you. And if you paint the picture of how you created and what your vision is, people have to respect that. Yeah. And it's actually, they have to help you get to the ROIs and all of these metrics together if they believe in you as a person and in your innovation. So I think it's quite difficult to me, when I see 4 men or 5 men sitting in a room, I know that they're not going to be my partners, simply because I believe that it has to be a path that you travel together, and it has to be very strong appreciation for the time and effort you have put as a founder, and it cannot just be metrics.
One of the things is about the number of women who actually make investments, and I once read that women don't make investments. So generally women, if they're going to do any form of investing, it will be in property. So they'll do house renovations or a buy-to-let. And I feel that's slightly changing. It may be just the world I'm in right now in this e-commerce and brand world, but both of you have women as investors. You have Joanna Jensen, and you mentioned another female investor, and you've obviously
Maxine.
Oh, you've got Maxine. Yes, Maxine Naseby. I know Maxine. And you've now got Kim Kardashian coming on as a partner. What difference does it make when you're talking to a woman about your business plans as opposed to a man? And how have you found it actually having female investors?
First of all, I think for me, actually, the added value is the fact that those two women have built businesses before, or have a current business like Maxine. So they both have done the journey, and Joanna's exited, and that's what I ultimately would like to do at some point. So it's actually that experience most that I really, really value, is them having a shared experience and understand what I'm going through and understand the pains and the pluses and the whole 360 of running a business. I think for me, it's more around the fact that most men that are investing have never run a business before and don't know what it takes to run a business. And that's the biggest plus, rather than it being gender, to be honest. Because actually now I'm very lucky in the fact that majority of my male investors are epic, and I've been able to choose the cool male investors that support me and support the ups and downs, because there isn't enough. Right now in my journey, I haven't been able to be picky enough to be able to just say, I'm not going to go with you. I'm only going to wait out for the female investors. That would be the dream, is have way more female investors. But yeah, I think it's just the shared experience for me that has added a huge amount of value.